PLC AT start is complete.
Copy that.
OTC CDR, need to reconfigure, please.
We'll be starting the orbiter aerosurface profile test in just a moment.
We'll
be starting the orbiter aerosurface profile test in just a moment.
for post sequence 4.
Minus 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Checking main engine steering. Minus 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Checking main engine steering. Verifying that the main engines now are in the start position. Pressurizing the liquid oxygen tank.
For ET-LO2 pressurization.
We'll now be retracting the gaseous oxygen vent arm.
PLC OTC clear, caution and warning, memory, verify no unexpected errors.
PLC, that's in work. OTC, PLC, caution and warning memory is clear, no unexpected errors.
Copy that. Endeavour OTC, close and lock your visors, initiate O2 flow.
Endeavour in work.
T-minus 2 minutes and counting.
GLS is go for ET-LH2 pressurization.
Minute, 30 seconds.
Now arming the sound suppression water system. Closing the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen fill and drain valves. Standing by for the handoff to Endeavour's onboard computers. T-minus 31 seconds and the handoff has occurred.
25. 20.
Firing chain is armed. Out suppression water system is armed. Go for main start. 8, 7, 6, 4, 0, and liftoff for the final launch of Endeavour, expanding our knowledge, expanding our lives in space.
Houston, Endeavour, all program.
Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Houston is now controlling. Endeavour beginning to roll over onto its back. The roll program underway as Endeavour begins the heads down position on course for a 51.6 degree, 136 by 36 statute mile orbit. down as Endeavour passes through the area of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle in the lower atmosphere. Approaching 1 minute into the flight.
Endeavour, go at throttle up.
Roger, go ahead, throttle up.
Endeavour's three main engines now back at full throttle, all three engines in good shape. Endeavour's already traveling 1,300 miles per hour at an altitude of 11 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, now 12 miles. At liftoff, Endeavour fully fueled, weighed 4.5 million pounds. It's already lost half that weight in propellant now, burned that weight. Next event is burnout and separation of the twin solid rocket boosters. That upcoming here shortly at the 2-minute 3-second point. Those boosters are burning 11,000 pounds of fuel per second. Standing by for separation of the solid rocket boosters. The onboard guidance system has done its job of settling out any dispersions introduced at booster separation. The orbiter is now traveling 3,200 miles per hour, downrange 50 miles, altitude 37 miles. All systems in good shape. Three good hydraulic systems, auxiliary power units, and fuel cells. The fuel cells providing electrical power to all of the systems.
Roger, 2-engine TAL.
Endeavour can reach a TAL site in the event of a single engine failure. However, all three are in good shape. Space Shuttle Endeavour sailing into fair winds on its final historic voyage. This view looking down the external fuel tank, the orbiter there on the top, as Endeavour continues to power its way into orbit, traveling 4,000 miles per hour, downrange 90 miles, altitude 50 miles. 3 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight. All three main engines still looking in good shape. Hydraulic systems and electrical systems on board the orbiter.
Endeavour, negative return.
Roger, negative return.
Endeavour can no longer return to the Kennedy Space Center in the event of an engine failure now, but all three are still in good shape, as are all of the other systems aboard the orbiter. Quiet here in Mission Control as a team of flight controllers watches over all of the systems. 4 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight, Endeavour's traveling 5,500 miles per hour. Altitude now 63 miles, traveling downrange 186 miles, or about 335,000 feet in altitude. Environmental and Control Systems Officer here reporting a good flash evaporator system providing cooling to all of the avionics equipment aboard the vehicle. Traveling into space on the forward flight deck is Commander Mark Kelly and pilot Greg Johnson. Between and behind them is flight engineer Roberto Vittori. And rounding out the flight deck crew is Mike Fink.
Endeavour, press to ATO.
Roger, press the ATO.
Endeavour can reach orbit on 2 engines should one fail at this point. However, all 3 are still performing as planned. Down on the middeck of Endeavour, Drew Feustel and Greg Chamitoff. Feustel headed to the International Space Station for the first time. Vittori and Fink making their first voyage on the Space Shuttle after flying to the International Space Station aboard Soyuz spacecraft previously.
Endeavour, single engine, Ops 3.
Roger, single engine Ops 3.
That call indicates that Endeavour could reach a transatlantic abort site on 1 engine. if it lost 2 of the 3, although all 3 are still in good shape. 5 minutes, 50 seconds into the flight.
Endeavour, press to MECO and single engine Zaragoza, 104.
Roger, press to MECO, single engine Zaragoza 104.
Several calls there. Endeavour can reach a safe orbit on 2 engines now. The guidance system is controlling the engines to roll Endeavour to a heads-up position to optimize the air-to-ground communications through the satellite network. Flight controllers reporting to Flight Director Richard Jones they're in good shape.
Your shutdown plan is nominal.
Copy, shutdown plan is nominal.
From us, your go to plus X, go to pitch.
Roger, go for the plus X, go for the pitch.
Endeavour, single engine press, 104.
Roger, single engine press 104.
Endeavour can reach orbit on 1 engine should 2 fail. However, all 3 are still in good shape. The 3 main engines are flowing fuel through their power systems at a rate equivalent to draining an average backyard swimming pool in 25 seconds. 7 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Altitude 64 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 630 miles. Endeavour is traveling 13,500 miles per hour. We're now seeing throttling on the 3 main engines to maintain the 3G or 3 times gravity load on the vehicle and the crew. Engines at 82% of rated thrust, 8 minutes into the flight. The next activity is main engine cutoff. That's expected to be commanded at 21 seconds. And main engine cutoff has been confirmed. Flight Dynamics reporting a nominal main engine cutoff. And separation from the external tank. Endeavour's Commander Mark Kelly now firing the thruster jets to position the orbiter for photography of the external tank.
We did see a nominal MECO. OMS 1 is not.
Copy, nominal MECO, OMS 1 not required.
The pitch-up maneuver will allow for some photography of the external tank as it falls away from the orbiter. To capture images for the imagery analysis team to evaluate any loss of foam from the tank during the launch phase of the vehicle. The residual items floating away there are typically particles of ice that accumulated on the back end of the orbiter during the tanking process while it was sitting on the launch pad. By all indications, all of the flight control team here in mission control reporting normal ascent calls all the way uphill. From this early standpoint, there were no issues at all with any of the systems aboard Endeavour on the way into space. Endeavour now safely is into space. The next big activity will be the orbital maneuvering system engine burn to more circularize Endeavour's orbit. Currently, the vehicle's in a 136 by 36 statute mile orbit, very highly elliptical. and that will be refined here in the next 30 minutes to more circularize the orbit on its way to the International Space Station. That link up with the ISS scheduled for early Wednesday morning, about 6:15 in the morning, is the current targeted docking time of Endeavour to the ISS. Again, a fairly routine ascent. All of the calls, abort calls to the flight director all the way uphill were fairly routine. There were no anomalies discussed whatsoever on the way uphill during today's launch. They're looking at Richard Jones in the middle there. He is the ascent flight director for STS-134. Barry Wilmore in the near view, serving as the spacecraft communicator. Lee Archambault, just sitting down there, served as the interface for weather reconnaissance with astronaut Rick Sturckow, who was flying shuttle training aircraft down at the Kennedy Space Center evaluating weather. And then at the top of the picture is Tony Sakachi. He served as the weather flight director, and he also will be back 14 days from now, serving as the entry flight director for Endeavour's final return home at the end of this mission.
Right now.
As Endeavour flies.
Endeavour Houston for Deltas to page 3-4 when you're ready.
We are ready to copy.
I'll give you your OMS 2 preliminary time for your TIG is 37:00. Actually, I have no Deltas to 3-4. Tail only control, of course, I repeat, will be required.
Copy, no deltas, tail only control is required, 37.00 feet.
That's a good read back, Endeavour.
And Flight Director Richard Jones getting a go from flight controllers for a shutdown of the auxiliary power units.
Endeavour for box, you are go for APU hide shutdown.
Copy, go for APU hide shutdown.
Those three hydraulic systems performed perfectly going uphill. Also, the control of the heaters for the APUs, obviously the issue that delayed the launch a couple of weeks. The APU heaters working just fine aboard the vehicle. As is the flash evaporator system, which provides cooling to all of the avionics and electronics equipment aboard Endeavour during ascent and until the payload bay doors are opened. The door opening is scheduled to occur about an hour and a half or so into the flight. Once the payload bay doors are opened, the flash evaporator system is bypassed, which allows the radiators to be activated, and the cooling of all of the systems during on-orbit operations is conducted through the radiators that line the payload bay doors. mechanical systems officer reports a good shutdown of the auxiliary power units. Those are not required for the on-orbit phase of the mission. They provide hydraulic power to the main engines and also the aero surfaces. They will be required, obviously, for entry. One of those will be used the day before landing for a checkout of the flight control surfaces and the aero surfaces as well. All of those will be checked out before entry, but the APUs now have done their job putting Endeavour into orbit, assisting with that. Next up will be a OMS 2 burn.
2 minutes to spreading.
Copy, 2 minutes of spreading.
The spreading call is a nominal call. That's basically what we do when we're going over Europe, so the S-band communications system doesn't interfere with telecommunications satellites. Also reporting that orbital maneuvering system 2 burn to more circularize Endeavour's orbit upcoming at about 37 minutes mission elapsed time. That's about 20 minutes from now. Crew now in the process of beginning to transition the onboard software to the post-ascent stage. Crew is still in its ascent checklist. It will transition to the post-insertion checklist about 35 minutes or so mission elapsed time. Everything going very smoothly with Endeavour's ascent post-insertion activities on board. We'll head back down to Florida now for the traditional launch replays.
Endeavour, we like your TIG. You are go to load.
Copy, go to load.